So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 5 tablespoons of meringue powder. You can buy meringue powder at bulk food stores and baking sections of craft stores. I like the bulk food store one better. It tastes better. We were just talking about that. So I'm just dissolving the meringue powder in 1/3 cup of water. I find the Redpath flour is really great, doesn't need sifting. And if there are a few lumps, they seem to work their way out. And now I'm going to add another half a cup of water. So I usually have it on the stir setting. At the most, I have it on 2. And almost immediately I take out a spatula and stir it up, because the longer you mix it, the more air you put in, which results in air bubbles on your cookies. And then you just have to try and pop them or hide them. When you add coloring, always add the smallest amount to begin with. I'm going to mix it up. This is a beautiful egg yellow. It's one of my favorite colors. This is now the time we're going to talk about consistency. Sometimes you want a thicker icing, but for flooding a cookie, I like to use what I call 10 plus 2. I am not patient enough to wait 20 seconds, so what I do is I count to 10 and then I shake for 2. So I'm going to fold it over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And it's completely smoothed over. So this is a perfect consistency for me. The way I use my icing is I use icing pods. So instead of putting this directly into a piping bag, which then means I got to wash this piping bag after every fill, I make a little pod of icing. So I've crunched up the bag. I've got the one end of the coupler in there, and then I put the tip of my little pod into the bag and I pull it through. Cut the end off, and then I put my tip on. So I'm going to start in the middle, work my way out to the edge. I drop the icing onto the cookie. You'll see my piping tip is up from the cookie, but not way up. I'm not comfortable with that. And close to the edge, but not all the way at the edge. And then I fill it in. I don't go all the way to the edge right away. You know what, I would have used a bigger tip. I would have used a real 3 or maybe even a 4 for this generally. Now it's almost flooded, but I call this like 80%, 90%. And then what I do is I continue to squeeze. I stick my piping tip right into the icing and I push it to the edge. So I'm not squeezing quite as hard because I don't want to push that icing off the edge, but I'm squeezing somewhat hard. And as I do that, I sort of do a double job of mixing it and flooding it. Some people will, after they flood it, then take a scribe tool. I've seen them, and they scribe it. We're having the Wizard of Oz theme, so I made some Toto cookies. So I'm going to quickly flood Toto. I was trying to figure out what kind of dog to make for Toto, and I did some research. And I guess in the original book, The Wizard of Oz, they just called him a scruffy dog. They didn't identify him. So the fact that we think of him as a little black dog has more to do with the movie than the book. If you were doing a real fancy marbling technique, and there's some really great pictures of that in the Redpath booklet that you got, you would be a lot neater than this. But I'm trying to make him look scruffy, so I'm moving him around. So I have this little container of antique gold luster dust. I know there's people here who sell things like this, and now I don't really have a buckle ready to demonstrate, but I wanted to show you this technique. So I put in a little scoop of, thank you, a little scoop of gold. I just pour, and I try to pour a really tiny amount, and I always struggle with that, because the thinner you make it, the harder it is to get a good gold color. So then I just use my paintbrush to mix the gold and the vodka. Oh, that's definitely not enough vodka. And then I can use this to paint. And then the vodka evaporates. Safe for children, because the vodka evaporates. And it gets a beautiful gold color.